we're nearly there yet. My name is Sonia, and each week I have a conversation with someone different about a different aspect of parenting and family life. At the end of 2020, I sat down and had a conversation with Michelle Brown, who is a bit of an expert in the field of children and babies and sleep. We hope that you're well-rested parents over the Christmas. Maybe you're not, maybe you need more sleep than ever. But for our first conversation of 2021, we hope you'll enjoy listening in. So welcome to the podcast. This week I'm having a conversation with Michelle. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Sonia. Thanks for having me.
That's okay. It's great to have you with us. So, Michelle, why don't you tell people that are listening a little bit about yourself? Like, who are family to you? Who are your family? And by that, I mean like now and also when you were growing up.
Okay, so I'm married to Chris and we have 3 boys. Nathan, who's nearly 14, Daniel, who's 12, and Jacob, who's 8. We live in Finchampstead and we've been part of Kerith for about the last 12 years. The boys are really into sports and football, so I'm often found on the side of a football pitch, especially Saturday mornings, and we get through a lot of food, as you can imagine. With 3 boys in the house, I spend a lot of time cooking and they eat a lot. So that's for now. Growing up, I feel really blessed. I grew up in a really supportive family. I have 2 brothers. One's older and one's younger, so I'm stuck in the middle there. So my parents are Christians, and I grew up with a great church and a great youth group, actually in Guildford, so not too far from here. So yeah, I've got really happy memories of my childhood and many happy memories of holidays growing up.
Yeah, it's interesting. The podcast, the conversation that we put out just before Christmas was with Ben Oliver, and he grew up with 2 sisters and has just girls, and you're the opposite. You grew up with boys, with brothers, and you've got 3 boys. So yeah. How's it been the only female in the house?
Yeah, I've got to have my own female friends, and my mum lives just around the corner literally, so that's been really helpful. But yeah, I do need time out away from the men and the boys at some points.
What school years are they in?
So my eldest 2 are in secondary school, year 9, and then Daniel's just started year 7. And then Jacob, my youngest, is year 3.
You've got similar gaps between your older 2 and then your 3rd, although mine was 3rd and 4th, but age gaps. So
yeah.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about what you do. I'm sure as a busy mum of 3 boys, there's a lot of washing, and as you say, like, they eat so much, don't they, boys? And they're only going to eat more as they grow bigger, aren't they? But
that's true.
Preparing food, I mean, hopefully they help with that as well. Maybe your husband does as well. It's not always the mum that has to do all these things. We're all about quality with the house.
That's right.
Household chores. But what do you do? Obviously, you work inside the home as a mum. What do you do outside of that as well? Because you work outside the home as well, don't you?
Yeah, well, up until recently, I was a community pharmacist. But at the start of lockdown, I had to stop because it's not something I can do from home. So I'm not doing that role anymore. But it did allow me to focus on my other role, which is being a holistic sleep coach. So I help families who are struggling with sleep to get better sleep, and it's a role I really love.
So I'd love to know how you stumbled upon that. How did you go from the pharmacy to the sleep coaching? Where did the passion start? How did that birth itself? That's kind of like...
Yeah, sure. Well, I've always had high sleep need, so I need a lot of sleep to function. And when I had children, I knew that was something I needed to focus on for them to sleep well so that I could function as a parent, and to get them good habits early on. So I had one child who had some sleep issues, and they were waking up every hour in the night, and I was struggling really. We all know what it's like to be sleep deprived, but I did not find this easy. I can remember walking into a shop and trying to pay for my shopping, and I couldn't even remember the 4-digit PIN code for my credit card. So it was this point I thought, right, I need to do something here. So I looked around for answers, and all I could see really was the strategies that most people know as cry it out or control crying, and leaving your little one on their own just to sort themselves out. So that didn't really fit well with me and how I wanted to parent. So I did a bit more digging and found some more gentle and responsive strategies where I wasn't leaving my little one on his own, and they did result in better sleep. So that's kind of where my journey started. It does kind of link to pharmacy because I love helping people. I get a real buzz from helping people, sorting their issues out, which partly as my role as a community pharmacist is what I do. And then with my science background, I was looking for some training to become a sleep coach, and I wanted something which was evidence-based and based on research. So I did the holistic sleep coaching program, which took me to degree level training as a sleep coach, and that allowed me to launch my business, which is the Baby Sleep Experts. So that's where I am now. So yeah, I love helping parents, helping them understand what's going on in their situation and turning it around. I love seeing the difference it can make in their lives, how when they get their evenings back or bedtime's a lot easier, makes them feel human again, and yeah, they just enjoy being parents again and just enjoy their children more.
How long have you been doing it?
Been doing it just over a year now.
So when the word coach, like, you know, there's the sporting coach, there's kind of like business coaches, like geeing people on. What do you actually do as a coach? Are you there? Do you go for sleepovers around the child's house? Are you the one that's looking after the child at night? Like, I know the answer to this, but just share in case anyone's unsure.
Yeah. So no, I don't sleep over, thankfully. As I said, I need my sleep. Yeah, so I speak to the parents one-to-one usually, and we come up with a plan together. So I take into account all their parenting style and the child's temperament and personality, and we work out something that they think they will be achievable. And I then support them through making the changes. So usually over around 4 weeks, we check in, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, and I encourage them and support them through what they're going through. And they come to me with any questions or queries, and I help with them with those and encourage them along the way.
I love what you said at the start. You look at their own parenting style. Now, how does that work itself? Say it's a second, third, or fourth baby in a household. Then okay, you might know what your parenting style is by that. But how does that look like when it's new parents with their firstborn? They don't necessarily know what their parenting style is.
Yeah, I think most parents would say, I want to be a responsive parent. I want to, be loving and gentle, and that's generally the place where we start from.
Yeah, you used the word holistic a couple of times now. I think that word has become a little bit paired in recent years with more kind of like alternative, almost like new age type things. Was actually holistic, like medically, it's treating the whole person, isn't it? Looking at more than one.
Yeah,
thing,
that's right.
Medical, social factors, rather than just one aspect. So yeah, tell us a little bit how that.
Yeah, because sleep's not ever just a sleep issue. Quite often it's a feeding issue or a behavioural issue. So when I say holistic, I mean looking at the whole picture and the whole family. So we go through everything: nutrition, what's happening in the daytime, what's happening at bedtime, if there are any allergies, any reflux. We just cover absolutely everything so that we know we're not missing anything crucial that might be related to sleep.
Yeah. So there's all different kinds of things that people can bring to you with sleep issues, and there could be all different things going on behind the scenes. What are some common kind of myths that you hear about babies and sleep? Do you hear those kind of cliches?
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness, no, like that's not true. My research tells me no. Like, what some of those? Could you help us kind of like?
Yeah, there's so many. sleep myths. I think one of the most common ones is that babies sleep through after 6 months, which we all know as parents that doesn't always happen.
No.
And actually the evidence shows that over 70% of babies up to the age of 18 months are actually waking between 1 and 3 times a night. So if your baby is waking up and they're under 18 months, then you're in good company.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly normal.
But our first child did sleep through at 8 weeks. And we thought, wow. And I remember thinking that we had achieved, it felt like we had achieved something. We had done something right. I even use words which now make me cringe, like he's a good baby, which now I'm like, oh, you know, they're all good babies, whether they're sleeping or not. And then we had more children. Our daughter came along and she did not sleep for quite some time. And then our twins were actually we'd still get someone in our bed, as we should have got a sleep coach. We still used to have someone like toddling into our bed well into their first year at school, into reception. Not all night, not staying awake, but you just feel someone get into bed with us. And so like now they do. Now everyone sleeps through and we're like in the wonder years of, yes, we're sleeping.
Hey.
But yeah, they're all so different. And I soon realised with number 2 that actually it wasn't anything we had done necessarily. It's just babies are different. And they're not designed, are they, to sleep for long periods? Even though my son did at 8 weeks, actually their stomachs are so tiny that they fill quickly and they empty quickly, so they wake because they're hungry. And yeah, any more myths you want to unpack with us?
Yeah, so you often hear people say, oh, don't rock your baby to sleep, or don't feed your baby to sleep, or don't cuddle your baby when they're sleeping. Well, let me tell you, nothing wrong about that. If that's working for you and your baby, then that's fine. It's only when it becomes a problem and it's not sustainable that you need to do anything about it. You just got to do what works for you, really. Another one I hear quite often is, oh, if I give my baby formula, then they'll sleep better. Again, that's not something that's backed up with research at all. In fact, it doesn't make any difference in the studies that have been done. I heard that a lot. I was told that a lot. And that can kind of mess with your head. I mean, however baby is fed is the best way, you know, as long as baby is fed, that's good. That's right.
No matter how. But yeah, I remember being told that by people, and that was why, because I wasn't doing that, and you know, with different children, and it can mess with your head when people come out with these things. I'm trying to, both of our children are, you know, they're older now, our children, but it takes you back, this conversation, to when they were little, and some of the people listening will still be in those years, babies and infants, and some of those things. What would you say to new parents who are just really, really feeling that sense of sleep deprivation and just exhaustion? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's a really tough time, those first few months, especially if your little one doesn't sleep well. A lot of people say nap when your baby naps, but if your baby only naps for half an hour, then that doesn't really work so well. But I would say accept all help. If anybody's offering to cook you a meal, or even just hold your baby while you go and have a shower, if your co-parent can do that for you, or maybe some grandparents can come over and just help with some housework, or just to say yes. Don't be proud. Don't feel guilty that you're not doing it all by yourself. Just accept all the help that you can get.
Yeah, I think people do beat themselves up that it's going to be, they've got to do it all, they've got to be everything. And a lot of comparison with new parents. Do you see that quite a lot as well? Because most of the time, obviously, you're dealing with parents that, you know, the fact that you're dealing with babies and infants. How old do you go up to?
Up to 6.
Up to 6,
up to 6, yeah.
Do you see a lot of that kind of like comparison or feeling pressure from other parents?
Yeah, you see it all the time when other parents who've got children or babies the same age as yours, and they say, oh, my one's sleeping through, and you think, oh, I'm awake 2 or 3 times in the night, maybe 6 or 7 times in the night. But what does sleeping through actually mean? Did they sleep for 12 hours, 10 hours, 5 hours? it creates quite a lot of fear when they do this comparison, and it's best not to focus on that.
And also those of us who are helping and talking to people who are in that stage of life, I know I've said things before. I know I've asked people, oh, are they sleeping through yet? And that actually just adds to that pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not helpful.
No, that's right. Are they sleeping through? Is he or she a good baby? Do they get you up at night? Yeah, no, none of those are particularly helpful, are they?
No, they're not, are they? I'm wondering if there's any research or evidence. Like my children, we used to joke whenever they went to their grandparents, they would sleep. Like when they were still in the sleeping, they'd go for a sleepover. When they, when the twins were still waking, like when they were 2 or 3, they'd have a sleepover at Nana's house, and she'd say, "Oh, I didn't hear a peep," and we'd be like, "What?" Because they always waked us. Is there any research that would kind of talk anything about why that might be? Like, why do they wake up more when they're with the parents nearby, their primary carer nearby?
No, I don't know any research about that. Maybe their grandparents didn't hear them.
Well, I did used to say that, actually. I did used to, you just cried and you just ignored them. You're too fast asleep. No, I didn't know if there was anything to do with like attachment, and like attachment to the primary carer, like more likely to wake up when they smell you, but then that could go the other way as well, couldn't it? Actually, they're more contented when they're around the primary carer. So no, I find it really interesting. So I know it's really you obviously look at the individual circumstances, the individual family, like it might be one parent's doing shift work, that can have an impact, couldn't it? There's all different kinds of things that can be going on. So I know it's hard for you to maybe give generic blanket advice to people, but have you got any kind of top tips for people that are struggling, that are more generic?
Okay. So better sleep at night actually starts in the day, what you're doing in the day. So I'll give you some tips for anybody, any age really. So the first thing, and some of these might be quite obvious, but actually think about whether you're actually doing it. The first one is exercise and outdoor time. So you can't just rely on it being nighttime for your little one to be tired and ready to sleep. They really need to have plenty of exercise in the day, and actually they recommend for children under the age of 5 to have 3 hours a day of physical activity. So that could be skipping, hopping, jumping, walking to nursery, riding a balance bike, dancing around the house, scooting, things like chasing games or ball games, just getting them active and tired, worn out. For younger babies under the age of about 12 months, you're looking at things like tummy time and rolling or crawling or doing an obstacle course around the lounge, that sort of thing. You can't have too much really. And having it outdoor is actually beneficial because broad spectrum daylight helps our circadian rhythm, which is our internal body clock. So that's going to help regulate the body clock as well. So that's the first tip.
People say, like, when they wake up for a feed in the night, actually do keep a dim light, keep it dark. Is there I was once told that, is there any actual research that backs that up, like to keep things quiet and dim at night when they wake, so they can start to get to the difference between night and day? Is that an actual thing?
Oh yeah, there's a whole ton of research about that. Light is one of the main cues for our circadian rhythm, so, and noise and activity as well. So that's exactly it. 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark, and normal activity levels and noise in the day, and then keeping it quiet and softer and treating it as nighttime for 12 hours in the dark.
And I guess that, and again that does depend on the family, like the placement of where the child is in the family. In terms of a first child, it's easier to have that calm at night, whereas if you've got subsequent children, you crying and waking up may well have woken up the whole household.
That's right.
Those factors are in play, aren't they? That's why I tell myself that it got worse as we more experienced parents. We actually became worse with the nighttime thing because everyone else woke up at the same time. But carry on.
Not so easy. Okay, so the second tip is love bombing. Have you come across the concept of having a love tank?
I've heard about that, but I'd love you to explain a bit more about it. It'd be great.
Yeah, so it's all about spending good quality time with your children, and doing that fills their love tank. And you want, obviously, their love tank to be full when it's bedtime and they've got to spend the whole night apart from you. So it's things like sitting and listening to them, playing their favourite game, making sure your phone's away so they've got your undivided attention, teaching them new things, just so they feel really happy and loved and cared for and respected. And you'll probably find that their behaviour might improve and your bedtime might be more successful. Have you come across the 5 different love languages?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's a great...
Explain though, in case anyone is listening and doesn't know.
Yeah, okay. So there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, and there's a version for children by Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell. So they go through all the 5 love languages, which are words, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And generally, younger children may not have a specific love language, but they can receive love in all these different ways. So it's important that we give them love in all their different ways. And actually, if at bedtime, if they're feeling connected and with you, their primary caregiver, then it's likely to be more successful in the night. And then the third tip is about bedtime. So we all heard of having a bedtime routine is a good idea, but I want you to not just to see it as putting your child to bed. It's more partly about winding down and getting relaxed and ready to sleep, and partly about a really good time of connection and bonding with you before they go to sleep. So make sure it's calm, soothing, and predictable. So you do the same steps in the same order every single night, and it doesn't have to be long. Just make it really simple, something like 30 or 40 minutes, and you would just do maybe a bath, have a feed, a story, a cuddle, and they soon learn to recognise that those things mean that sleep's coming.
As you're explaining it to me, I'm feeling quite sleepy, Michelle. It's relaxing me.
Oh, good.
No, I don't mean like, I'm not I mean, it just makes me feel calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what it does to our children when we get one.
Yes.
That's great. How has this work affected you or influenced you in your own motherhood?
I'm trying to practice what I preach more, and making sure that I am doing that quality time with each of my children. It's really hard when you've got more than one child to have one-on-one time, and it really, I find I have to plan it in, otherwise it just doesn't happen. And we take it in turns to have some one-to-one time with each child on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's good. Have you done any work with people with multiples when it comes to sleep, like twins or more?
Yeah, I've had one lady with twins. Yeah, that's hard work.
Yeah, and it was. But
and to have other children as well.
Yeah.
In the equation.
It really shows you that actually, children, we're all born unique. We're all individuals, and like for us, having our twins, they're so different to one another, and they're probably the two that are most different in all 4 of us. And it's just really interesting to see. Like, you've got to look at the needs of the whole family and all the different things that are going on. But our children are individually, they're individually fearfully and wonderfully made, created as unique beings. And so it's great to hear that, you've got these different strategies and these kind of like general things, but actually the work that you do, you really hone in on the individual needs of the child. Because as I say, as someone who had twins, I know that they are individual. There's no better kind of social experiment of that than to have 2 babies at the same time who are completely different in personality and character and everything. So
that's right. And what works for one baby doesn't necessarily work for another. Everyone's so different. So it's about finding what works for that particular baby.
Yeah.
And that particular family.
And everyone will have different approaches, our upbringing and how we were told. It's great to hear that you focus on the individual, and also with mums and dads, that there's no guilt in needing to sort this out for your child so that you are the one that sleeps better as well, so you're getting rest. Because actually, yeah, it might be the child, it might be a child-centered approach, but it's the whole family as well, and actually the child is served better with rested parents.
Yeah, that's right. And quite often it's the easiest thing to do is try and help the parents sleep better, because as a parent you can change the way you do things for yourself and your own sleep hygiene, and that's so much easier than trying to get a baby to change things. So that's often where we start with optimizing a parent's sleep.
So where can people find you if they want to find out more, maybe want to check in with you for a private personal coaching session or sessions?
Yep, so I'm the baby sleep expert, and you can find me on Facebook or Instagram or at my website www.thebabysleepexperts.co.uk.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, thank you for your time with me today, Michelle.
No problem.
So I'm going to ask you what I ask everyone else. So the podcast is called Are We Nearly There Yet? Reflecting the question that children ask us when we go on long journeys, or sometimes short journeys, they ask it as well. And yeah, we're on a journey as parents, aren't we? We're ever changing and learning new things. If you were to go back to the start of your journey as a parent, what essential items would you have taken with you on the journey that you know now that didn't maybe know then? They can be metaphorical or literal things. What advice would you give to yourself, really?
Okay, so there's lots of things really. I suppose one thing is knowing that perfect parents don't exist. I had this thing about craft, and that to be a good mum, I needed to do craft with my kids and allow them to do painting and sticking and glitter and glue. And I can remember one day, it was an incident involving orange paint all over the kitchen. And I thought I was being a great mum, giving my little one opportunity to do painting, but actually it didn't end well. So yeah, I think it's not having any mum guilt about not doing what you think is the right thing with your child, and knowing that you are enough for your child and being available is enough for your child. They don't need loads of baby groups and doing whatever it is that you get hung up with. They just need you.
Yeah, that's good. And actually, I'm a bit art and craft averse as well, and that's where the baby groups or the toddler groups or then preschool, that's where they came in handy, because they did that stuff there. That's what I
Absolutely.
Right, is there anything else?
Yeah, another one I would say is you can't pour from an empty cup. And self-care is so important. If you don't care for yourself, there's no way you can care properly for your children. I soon learned that housework can wait. And just taking 10 minutes out, even if it's just, that's all you can do is 10 minutes just for yourself, maybe when your baby is asleep, just to listen to some music or read a book or pray or meditate. I find that puts you in a much better place to cope with the rest of the day.
That's so good. Yeah, so important to know. Well, thank you, Michelle.
Thanks very much for having me.
That's been great. It's been great, and it's been good to have. We're covering all different kind of conversations, but it's good to have one, especially for those who have got little ones at the moment, because a lot of our conversations maybe are things they might park to use in a few years' time. But it's great to have something for the ones with babies and infants. So thank you to talk to us.
No problem at all.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Michelle for joining us in this week's conversation. Some of you listening in may well be out of that phase of sleep deprivation, and for those that are still in it, know that this time will pass. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Michelle mentioned a book that we've had before mentioned on the podcast actually. It's called 5 Love Languages of Children, and it's by Gary D. Chapman and Ross Campbell. And you can find out all about Michelle's business and what she does. If you want to contact her directly, then she can be found at thebabysleepexperts.co.uk. We'll see you next time on Are We Nearly There Yet?